Hi, so I have a new video for you, and this is about emails, prospecting emails. Somebody asked me once, well, okay, so making a phone call, cold calling is great. What happens if you have to send an email? And you know, it's a really good question, because sometimes we do have to send emails, no matter how much you try, no matter how good you are at cold calling, and I'm sure you've been doing really well, or at least I hope you have. So sometimes you make a call and you can't get hold of the person because they don't work from the office, or they're out, or they're out and about and not going to be back for a little while, or whatever the reason is. Look, reality is sometimes you may have to send an email, but it's how you put that email together, how you construct it, that makes a difference. So I'm going to give you in this little video some tips on how I think you could write a really good, powerful sales email. Okay, so my number one tip is make your message clear. Know what you want your email to do. Now, I've said that the emails we're talking about here are emails when you haven't been able to get hold of the person, but there are different circumstances under which you haven't been able to get hold of the person. So the first one could be that you haven't been able to get hold of that person for ages and forever, and you've written before to them and they're just not coming back to you. Okay. The second one could be that you can't get hold of that person because they're not in the office, they haven't been in the office, and the gatekeeper is saying that they would be quite happy to pass on a message. So you might want to reinforce the message with an email from yourself. The third one could be just simply the very first introductory email, having spoken to somebody in the office, maybe the gatekeeper, it could be a colleague of the decision maker or somebody else who you've agreed to write in to the decision maker with. So I've given you 3 situations there. I'm sure there's more, but I'm just going to look at those 3 for you. So my thing is always make sure that you know what your email is trying to do. In the first example I gave you there, which is, the person hasn't come back to you. Rude, I know, but sometimes it happens and people don't respond to you, even after 1 or 2 emails. Yeah. Could be that they're not getting your emails. Okay, so then you can check if you want to. But seriously, if you've checked and the email address is correct and you're not getting any bounce backs or anything, the likelihood is they're just ignoring you. I don't know about you, but I don't like being ignored. And I always write something along the lines of, hey, I've written to you before. I really don't want to waste my time or yours. So I'd be really grateful if you can take a second or 2 to just tell me where you stand on this subject, so that I can manage my time going forward. Thank you, much appreciated. If they still don't come back to you after that, I guess then you've just got to weigh up the value of the prospect and see if there's another way in, which I can talk to you again in another video about. Okay, so the other situation I mentioned there was that maybe if the gatekeeper said, hey, I'll pass on a message for you. So okay, if the gatekeeper wants to pass on a message for you, that's great. But there's this old Chinese proverb, and there's lots and lots of studies on the fact that the more senses you apply to learning, the more you'll remember that experience, or you'll remember that learning or that sentence or whatever it is that your brain is trying to process. Now what we want is our decision maker to have our name in their head, or your name in their head, right? So what I always do when a gatekeeper says I'll pass on a message, I give the gatekeeper the words that I want the gatekeeper to pass on, and then I send an email emphasizing those same words on my email, and probably in the subject line. So for example, I might say to the gatekeeper, could you, let me just give you the message. Okay, so the name is Shea, S-H-E-A. Okay, now my name's pretty unique, so I always just use the first name. But if you want to use both names, there's no harm in that either. But when I use just the first name, there's almost an expectancy that they should know you. So the name is Shea. I'm calling from Wise Me Up. I'm calling about sales revenue. Okay, so I might use words like that because they're buzzwords, and then in my subject line of my email, I will put Shea, sales revenue, Wise Me Up. So or wise me up to sales revenue from Shea. And the reason I'm doing that is because the more times you repeat the same thing to the same person, the more likely they are to absorb it and take it in. So ask the gatekeeper, when do you think they'll get your message? And try and coincide your email with that, so that, they're kind of, ooh, Shea, wow, bombarded with, but that's what we want to do. So that's what I want that kind of email to do. I want to form an impression on the decision makers, so they think about me next time I call, and the name becomes familiar in their head. It's almost embedded in their head that they are more likely to take the call. The other third situation that I gave you was if it's just first time email, you've called the gatekeeper, or the gatekeeper's passed you on to somebody who's then agreed with you that the best way to approach the person in question is by emailing them, because that's their preference. Okay, so we've got to respect that that's their preference. And if that's the case, then how to write a great introductory email is in my next points 2 to 4. So the first thing to remember, guys, make it clear what you want your email to do. So my second point is make your email relevant. Now, there are plenty of times when I've received an email, I'm sure you have too, which sounds a little bit generic. It sounds almost as if it is just one template that people send out as a follow-up to a phone call. Guys, that's not the best way to send an email. If you're going to send an email to somebody whose offices you've just called and you've spoken to people in that office, then it's worth you tailoring it for that person, don't you think? And especially if you've done your homework. Now, if you'd watched my previous video about how to make a successful cold call, then you will in that video hear me talk a lot about preparation and planning, and how to go about researching the customer that you're approaching. So if you've done that homework already, then this tailoring of the email bit won't be so difficult for you, because all you're doing here is you're just making sure you're using that language that you've looked at in the website. The same as what I said to you when I said, prepare, do your research for the cold call. Address the email to the correct person, spelled correctly. Now, I know this sounds crazy, but if you put a H where a H isn't required in the name Sarah, and or you miss off a H and Sarah is spelled S-A-R-A, then that person might think, you haven't even spelled my name right. I know it gets my back up a little bit when people get my title wrong. Sometimes I get emails with Mr., and that really riles me up, because I think, come on, you could have at least looked me up. If you looked me up, you'd see clearly I'm not a mister. You will see things like that. And so if you don't know how to spell the name, then there's no shame in ringing that gatekeeper back up and saying, hey, look, we just agreed for me to send an email, but I just need to check the spelling of Stephen or Sarah or whatever it is, and just to make sure that I get it correct. So yeah, definitely get their name correct. Use the company name where you can in a sentence. I mean, don't just throw it in there for the sake of it. But if it fits in context, then rather than just say for your business, then just use the name of the business. It's always nice to do that. Words that are relevant, if there's a clear message during your research, if you found that actually these guys are focused on something that's quite clear in the messages that they're giving out there, then use that to your advantage to add that into the email. So I noticed that you're really focused on at the moment, and I'd really like to speak to you further about, we may be able to add value. So there are real gems of information that you will have found in your research, and all I'm saying is just add that to the email, put that into the email, and focus the email around that. Okay, so that's my tip number 2, make it relevant. Okay, tip number 3, less is more. Stop putting loads and loads of bump into emails. If you're one of those people that sticks tables and charts and pie charts and this and that and cartoons and moving pictures, and God knows how many attachments, please don't, because you know what happens is people don't read them. People read like the top line and make a decision there and then if they're going to carry on reading it. The fancy jargon and the buzzwords, and especially IT ones, there's no point. You don't need to add so much in it. Less is more. Why do I say that? Because the less that you have in terms of bump and content, the more intrigued a person could be in what you're saying. That's provided the content that you put in there, the little that you put in there, is good. And it should be if you follow these 5 tips that I've given you. If you're one of those people that's found that people come back with a decision based on your email, so they say, no, this is not something that we're interested in right now. It could be that you're putting too much in your email. Attachments and brochures and things like that. Don't give a person so much information on your email that it allows them to make an informed decision, or it allows them to feel that they're making an informed decision on what you offer. Okay? That shouldn't happen. What you really want to do, as we know, is you want to invite them to speak to you. But if you put too much in your email, the likelihood is they don't need to speak to you because they've got all the information there. What do they need you for? So to save yourself that situation, less is more. Tip number 4. Okay, you have heard me say this before, and I am going to say it again because it applies to all aspects of your sales process. But hey, make your email fresh, all right? And by fresh, it's the same reason I said in the last video, fresh. People see emails day in, day out. We're all being bombarded with emails all the time. So you've got to really think about how yours comes across in a fresh way. You want yours to be read. What guarantee do you have that it'll be read? Well, none actually. But what you can do is increase the chances of somebody wanting to read it by making it sound fresh. So once again, fresh being an acronym, you have to get your own words to fresh for you. But my words, the words that I used for my fresh in my email is the first one, F, being fascinating. Now, I get lots of emails with subject lines that are so boring, so dull. So I think about trying to make my subject lines a little bit more interesting and, make me stand out a little bit. So for example, I might put something like, just before you decide to delete this, ... I want to put something like sales training. When's the last time you thought about doing it to help you in your job? Anything, whatever it is, it's just take the essence of the tone of your email and put it in the subject line and make it stand out. Make it fun, make it fascinating. That's my F, fascinating. My R is respectful. Now, I want to make sure that the person that I'm emailing doesn't think that I'm just emailing ad hoc without having even spoken to or tried to speak to somebody in their business or even have done any kind of background work. So in my email, I will make reference to the fact that I have just called your offices. I understand you're on your way to a meeting. I know you won't be able to speak to me right now, so I'm going to write this in an email. Hope that's okay. And then I'll continue with my message. Sometimes I've even written, forgive me, but I've had to put it in writing just to make sure that I can get my message to you. So there's things like that, and this is just being respectful. It could be acknowledging somebody that you spoke to. So if you spoke to somebody, even if it's a gatekeeper, get their name and just make reference to the, John kindly referred me to you by email, just explained you weren't going to be able to talk to me right now. You might be in transit. Anything like that just helps you to come across respectfully. My E in my fresh is easy. Make it easy for the person to respond to you. Now, what we're trying to do here is get a response, get an interaction going. So for me, it could be something like, I really would like to understand a little bit more about your position on this at this current moment in time so that I can make sure I'm contacting you appropriately. Now, you you rather know if somebody's already tied up in a contract with somebody so you're not wasting your time? In which case, make the email easy for that person to turn around to you and say, I'm currently in a contract with, but it finishes on. Because that way you can start a conversation going, then you can go back to them, write back on the email and say, hey Sarah, that's brilliant, thank you so much. When do you think that contract will be over? The point is we're getting a conversation going, and that's really, really important. So make it easy for the person to respond, even if it's a no. Because like I said, I would rather know if I'm wasting my time than not know. So my S in fresh is strong. You've got to sound, there's got to be strength in your words. There's got to be strength in how you come across. By strength, I don't mean aggression or being cocky or anything like that, but just confidence as in, you know, we have worked with such and such before. Again, research, link it to somebody they may have worked with as well, with some great results. For example, I might put something along the lines of, our expertise has brought us fantastic results. We have a proven success record in all areas of sales training. So something like that. And those are, you know, that's a short, sharp word sentence that is strong. So make sure you have a strong sentence strung together with strong words. Could I say strong anymore? Read what you're saying. Look, if you're unsure about your value propositions and the sentences that you're putting into your emails, or you want to check them, send them to me. I'd be happy to read them and see if that's the kind of thing I would put. I've done this before for many, many people, and I'm more than happy to have a look at an email you might have put together, and I can give you some feedback on whether it sounds strong to me. So from my opinion. And you know, if you don't want to send it to me, then send it to anybody. Just send it to somebody and say, well, how do you read my email? Emails is you only have words. You don't have tone and you don't have body language. And those are key things. I'll put out another session, a short session on body language, tone and words, just to give you a little bit more of an idea of what I'm talking about later on. But at this stage, I'm just going to say to you, according to Albert Morabian in 1971, he put together a model with pie chart which shows that 55% of the way your message is interpreted and received is through your body language. 38% is through your tone and only 7% through your words. So then you might be thinking, well, how does that work on email when all I've got is words? How does it come across? That's exactly my point here. You only have words. So you have to be careful about what kind of words you use, and you have to make sure that the words are strong and they work and they reflect confidence. All right? So that's my S. So my H in fresh is about being helpful. Now, quite often emails can sound great, can have all the other elements that I've spoken about in them, but one of the things that would be really useful for a potential customer is to know how helpful you would be in certain situations. So where it comes to your product or your offering, think about the word help in there. Think about the word service. Think about how you can provide some information, because that's kind of showing you as somebody that would be easy to ask questions to, or someone that would be open to have a conversation or a discussion without obligation. So helpful has got to be something that figures in that email within your fresh. So just to recap, my point number 4 is fresh, and fresh for me is fascinating subject line, respectful, acknowledge the fact that you've tried to call the person, easy, make it easy for them to come back to you and give you their situation or their position currently, so you're not wasting your time. Strong, use strong words that show confidence and show that you have expertise and a background in what you're doing, you're not just trying. helpful, make your words sound as if you are open to having a conversation, discussion without any obligation. So you can use the word help if you want to, or use words that are equivalent to help in your email. So that's my fresh, and that's my point number 4. Point number five, keep control of it. So just like any other part of the sales process, you want to make sure that you have control of the conversation that's going to happen with this email. So this is why it's important to make sure that you finish with a question that invites an answer back. But on top of that, don't leave it without letting them know that you are still going to pursue them. So in some way or another, without sort of sounding like you're stalking them, just kind of put something on there which says something along the lines of, I will call you as a follow-up to this email, but I really wanted to make sure I gave you the opportunity to respond to me first. Okay, so something as simple as that it allows you to maintain control. And at that point, when you say that and you write that, make sure you diarize to call them back. If you're not, keep control of it. It being the sales process, this is a part of the sales process, this is your prospecting part of it. Keep control of it. That's my number 5. So let me just recap and give you those 5 tips again. So the first one is make it clear. Know what you want your email to do. Second one is make it relevant. Use all that hard work that you did on research to make the call in the first place. Use it to tailor your email. Okay. Is less is more. Don't put too much bump jargon in it, so much that they are able to make a decision as to whether they even want your service or not. Bait, not information. Don't put too much in it. Number 4, fresh. Make it fresh. Fresh works everywhere, you know. Fresh again, fascinating, relevant, to answer, strong and helpful. Find your own fresh for your emails. I'm sure you can. And number 5, maintain control of it. Don't let the customer just put you in the delete file. Make sure they know you're going to follow up, because if they know you're going to follow up, there is a sense of urgency for them to respond to you. You would rather know, guys, that it's a no than not no. Really important to know how to write and to construct and put together well. It's amazing, time consuming, but it's worth it, because this email that you send at this point as a follow-up to a cold call is reflecting you, is selling for you, it's selling you. So make it work for you, make it powerful. Once you've written it, read it and ask yourself, would I accept this email? Would I like to receive this email? And if you're not sure of the answer, then read it again, rewrite it, read it again, and then send it. Because now, I hope this video has been helpful to you. I'm always open to feedback from you. You know, I do get some feedback from you guys, and I've had such lovely messages. I really, really appreciate them. I absolutely love all of the communication that you guys send to me. It's very heartwarming, and it's very encouraging for me to know that these videos are being watched and are being used for to help you, and that you're finding them helpful. That's the whole point of me doing them. I'm passionate about selling, I'm passionate about professional selling, I'm passionate about helping people to come across more professionally, so that everybody in sales is respected for the profession that they're in. And any help, send me emails if you want me to have a look at them. I am happy to help you. Okay guys, once again, thank you, lots of love, and I will speak to you soon. Take care.